and the hits just keep on coming. Okay, so I just got through watching a movie. It's June 1st. It is still June 1st. And a few disclaimers at the top of every video, just in case you haven't watched the introduction. Number one is these are completely unedited. So what you see is what you get. When I turn the camera on, whatever I say is what I say. I've got my cannoli here because I just finished dinner. So I'm literally eating cannoli from a great restaurant. And I also have a drink here with me. So if you see that, you see that. I mean, it might happen, it might not. And second disclaimer is I am going to talk about spoilers like crazy. So there at the bottom of every video, I will put a whole list of all the movies I talk about, even if I just spout a line from the movie, which Few Good Men is the quote that I started the video with. So even though I only say one little thing about it, I'll put it at the bottom. So if you haven't seen the movie and you want to avoid spoilers, or look at the list of movies and you can avoid any possible spoilers. So it's June 1st, like I said, and I guess June 1st is going to start my 52-week challenge. If you haven't watched my introduction video, I talk about this book that I got online, 52-week movie challenge, and I filled it out. All the stuff that they asked about and wanted to know about. Actually, I did not put the date in here, so I might as well put the date 6/1 and my rating. Oh man, this is really hard. Do I do 4? Do I do 5? I'm gonna do 4.5. 4.5 for Reservoir Dogs. I just watched Reservoir Dogs. I just finished watching it. It does satisfy something in the book and something on the poster, which I talked about in my introductory video. And I guess since I've watched it, I can scratch off the poster. And I don't know if this is a... Do I have a card here? I don't know if this is a good idea to do live on camera or not. But here we go. Live and unedited on camera. I could have swore I had a card here. Hold on one second. Live television, ladies and germs. Another quote. If you can figure out that quote, I will give you full props. Anyway, I'm going to grab a card here. I'm going to grab none other than my SAG-AFTRA card. And we'll pull this poster down and see if I can scratch off Reservoir Dogs. Of course, I'm not going to try to watch all these movies in a year. There are some movies here that are going to be really difficult to find and watch. But I figured since we started on video number 1, review number 1, video number 1 is the introduction, but review number 1 movie in the 52-week challenge book, Reservoir Dogs, I figured I might as well show you. Can we scratch this off? It says be very careful with it and just try to scratch. I don't know if you can see this, but at the very bottom, unfortunately at the very bottom, I think it should be higher on the list, but that's my opinion. Reservoir Dogs. So, oh yeah. Oh, that worked great. Oh, and it's going red. I love it. And the first glasses are white. Oh, that's cute. Oh, and the writing is white. Oh, that's nice. So we just kind of gotta... It says be gentle with it because you don't want to mess up. Oh, I see. Each glasses are a different color of the characters in the movie. Each pair of glasses. That's cool. Okay, I will not bore you and do a better job later on before I pin it back up on the wall. So Reservoir Dogs down. That's 1 of 100. So, yes, I just watched it. There's a bunch of questions in this 52-week challenge book that I want to talk about. Let's see how many movies I can stick with. I can stick with in the 52-week challenge that's also on the poster. So this happens to be challenge number 42, and number 42 says the first film of a famous director. Okay. So, like I said before, I'm unpaid, so I'm not telling you, I'm not trying to promote anything, least of all a website or a book or anything like that, but I am telling you things that I use a lot. Well, something I use a lot is IMDb, Internet Movie Database. So I'm going to look up Quentin Tarantino because I know technically it's not his first, but there's a reason why I can use it for his first. Okay, so if you look up his film credits as a director, because it says a famous director, so the first film of a famous director. Okay, so I'm looking up his credits as a director, writer, actor, producer. Why doesn't this automatically say director? That's strange. I have to select director. Okay, so we have his director credits on IMDb. And if you go all the way to the beginning, technically there are 2 movies that are before Reservoir Dogs. But here's the deal. Lovebirds and Bondage is unfinished. It even says unfinished, and it's a short. I don't tend to, when I talk about film, when I love film, when I talk about film, when I include film, especially on this and on this poster, I don't include shorts. Am I trying to say shorts are not as good? Absolutely not. I just don't tend to watch a lot of shorts. There's a brilliant short that I watched the other day on Netflix. I loved it. It was only, 8-10 minutes. I think it was fantastic. But anyway, I don't tend to include shorts when I'm talking about a film. I want a long enough film, and the other film on his credits that's before Reservoir Dogs is called My Best Friend's Birthday. He directed it. It is also technically unfinished. You can't really find a full finished production of it. So technically Reservoir Dogs is the first Quentin Tarantino film that is completed and is a studio film. So that's why I say that it works here in the first film of a famous director. So the questions here are the movie title, obviously, Reservoir Dogs. Okay, year released, 1992. That's the year it was released. Aspect ratio, I don't know why it asked that. As someone who loves film, a cinephile, and someone who critiques film, I really don't care. I don't think I care about the aspect ratio. That's not something that I pay attention to. So I'm a little like, okay, why would it ask that? But anyway, okay, the running time, yes. A lot of times I do care about the running time. Is it too long? Is it too short? This happens to be 139 minutes, or excuse me, an hour and 39 minutes. Crime genre, crime thriller. Technically, most of his stuff he believes that most of his stuff tends to lie in the comedy. He's making satire, he's making comedy, brilliant film. This film doesn't feel nearly as comedic as a lot of his later work, but there are definitely aspects of comedy in this film. Rated R, starring Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, Chris Penn, Steve Buscemi, and Quentin himself, a lot of other people. Directed by Quentin Tarantino, produced by Lawrence Bender and Harvey Keitel, which I didn't know. I didn't realize that Harvey Keitel actually produced Reservoir Dogs, which was neat to find out. Music by. Okay, so here's the first question in this in this book that I find interesting. When it said music by, a lot of times I know James Horner, I know A lot of the works of a lot of famous musicians, John Williams and Harry Gregson Williams, and a lot of famous music. I'm like, oh, he did this and he did that. And when I was filling this out, I wasn't on IMDb. Well, I was on IMDb, but I wasn't looking at IMDb. And I was thinking to myself, who did the music? And then I started thinking, is there music? And I really was like thinking, there is no real music. There's no quote unquote soundtrack to this. Now, there are song selections. Absolutely. There are songs from the movie. Great songs. I mean, big songs that Tarantino put in this film that are perfect for this film. But there's no soundtrack. And then I was like, I have to look it up because am I right? Am I wrong? And so the music is done by Karen Rockman. Rockman? I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. A lot of people pronounce my last name wrong all the time, so I apologize if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. But yes, I was correct. There is no real soundtrack to this film, which is interesting. Another reason why it makes this film so innovative, when it first came out, I mean, critics were like over the moon. Producers and directors and writers were over the moon with this film. Was it an instant hit with audiences? No, technically it wasn't. It was an underground cult classic film that just grew and grew and grew. After his popularity with Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs got even more popular because people wanted to see, who is this guy who made Pulp Fiction. I myself did not see Reservoir Dogs until many years later. I probably didn't go back and watch Reservoir Dogs until after, let me look at it, until probably after Sin City. And technically he didn't direct that, he was just a guest director. But I saw, I see his name on a bunch of other things. I saw Pulp Fiction. I saw Jackie Brown, 4 Rooms. I saw a bunch of stuff that he had done. Kill Bill, which is a story for another day. I have a lot to say about Kill Bill, and not all of it's good. Not to say I don't like it. I do like it. It took me a long time to like it. I had watched it so many times and then, and didn't like it until way later. I appreciate it now. I like it. But kind of like with this film, I'll talk about later, Reservoir Dogs, kind of like with this film, it took me a while to like it. Whereas Pulp Fiction was like right away, I was in love with this film. But anyway, I didn't see Reservoir Dogs until at least, I'm definitely after Kill Bill, and I'm almost positive it was after Sin City, but before he did Death Proof. I'm almost positive I saw it before he did Death Proof. The first time I saw Reservoir Dogs. So anyway, the book goes on after music by awards received. Okay, so awards received, I have to really look up. I was hoping that it would have made more awards, but it didn't. Film Independent Spirit Award. Best Supporting Actor, Steve Buscemi. Okay, I like Steve Buscemi in this, but I've seen him do better. Would I have singled him out as the only award to be won by this film? No. Harvey Keitel is amazing. Tim Roth is amazing. The directing is brilliant. But how do you give something like this first time run? How do you really single out a director who hasn't really done much and say, hey, we should give him this award? But Steve Buscemi got an award for it, and I was a little surprised. That's the only award that I could really find that this film won when it deserved so much more. Why did you choose this particular film? Okay, why did I choose? Because it took me a long time to realize, and as a cinephile, I've been watching film since I was 6 or 8 years old, and I've been in love with film since then. And I couldn't count how many films I've seen and how many films I know. And I've got over 900 movies here on Blu-ray and DVD and stuff like that. I watch movies all the time. I love film. And it took me a long time because I was like, how do you pick your favorite film? I mean, that's really hard. How do you pick your favorite film? How do you pick your favorite composer? Okay, that might be a little easier, but still difficult when you watch as much film as I do. And again, how do you pick a favorite director? Oh God, that's another one. It's very difficult. Like, how do you do that when there is so much film out there and so many great directors? Well, it took me a long time, years, to realize that Quentin Tarantino is absolutely my favorite director. And so that's why I picked this. I was like, okay, I want to pick my favorite director. What is the first film of my favorite famous director? Quentin Tarantino, Reservoir Dogs. Okay, have you seen this movie before? Yes. Okay, so there's a lot to say about that. There's a lot to say about that. I don't know when to say it, but I guess now is as good a time as any. I've seen this movie a lot of times now, but originally, I when I first watched it, I was so shocked by it that I literally was like, that movie was brilliant, and I'd never want to watch it again. It was so good, and it was amazing, and I don't ever want to watch it again. And I didn't want to get into this yet. I'll get into this later, but there's another film like that. Other people have said the same thing. So let's take a break from the book and go into some of the stuff that I wrote notes. Okay, why did I write notes? I feel like I'm in school. I wrote notes because I can't remember all the little things that I would love to say, even though I just sat down and watched it. One of these days, I would love to do a review or reviews, not just a review, but reviews where I'm watching it, kind of like Mystery Science, Science Theater 3000. I don't want to do anything like that. I'm not going to say anything bad about that. I'm just going to say that's not for me. What I would like to do is sit and watch the film and react to it and be able to pause and talk about it, because there are little things that I see throughout the film that I might not necessarily remember, and I would love to pause and then talk about it, and then add those pieces to my review, and then cut out all the parts where I'm not talking, where it's just I can just sit and watch and enjoy, and I don't have anything necessarily to say. And why do I say that? For these very few reasons right here. I wrote down a couple of them. When in the middle of the movie, when Mr. Orange, when they go to talk about his backstory, and he walks into that restaurant where he meets the other cop, his handler, or whatever you want to call him. That restaurant that he walks into is also in American History X, which I have some other things to say about. So that restaurant has been used a lot of times in film, and it's little things like that that I might not necessarily remember if I hadn't written it down. I might not necessarily remember to say, hey, when he walks into there, I'm like, I totally recognize the beginning when he walks in there, because that's the same place that Ed Norton walks in, and Ed Norton and Ed Furlong walk in, and you can totally tell that's the same restaurant. Not only the fact that I live in Hollywood and I know the restaurant, I know where it is. Or where it was. I don't think it's not really open anymore. And when he goes in there, when Mr. Orange goes in there and he sits down and he's talking to his handler about the meeting he just had with some of the guys, I'm sitting there watching his handler. I hate saying that. What the hell is the guy's name? Okay, I'm gonna look it up. I should give credit where credit is due. Randy Brooks. I'm almost positive. Yeah, Holdaway. Randy Brooks. That is him, right? Yeah, that's him. Randy Brooks. He does a great job in the film. I like him in the film. So, Holdaway. Okay, so he meets his handler, Holdaway, and something that I wouldn't necessarily think to mention, but while I'm watching it, I noticed that he's sitting at a restaurant and he has a plate full of pancakes and he's not eating them. Okay, he pops something into his mouth 2, maybe 3 times during that scene. He's popping something into his mouth. I have no idea what he's popping in his mouth. It may be a French fry. Why would he have French fries with pancakes? But some people do. I don't know. But he's popping something into his mouth, but it's small. It's not pancake. And he literally has a plate full of like 4 different pancakes he hasn't touched. Now, if I were the director, there are certain things that ring false to me. I saw this interview Matt Damon did, this interview not long ago. He's talking about how he went on set, I think, of Gone Girl, and I'm going to open another page because I'm going to get this wrong. I know I'm going to get this wrong. Gone Girl. I'm totally going to get this wrong. So Ben Affleck was doing a film, Gone Girl, and he was doing the film with David Fincher, and Matt Damon wanted to. I mean, David Fincher is a big director, so Matt Damon wanted to go, check out David Fincher's director, and he had an in because Ben Affleck's in this film. So anyway, I don't want to take too long, but he goes to the film, and long story short, there's a scene where a background actor, because I used to do background acting, a background actor walks by, and David Fincher's like at the beginning of the scene opens, the background actor goes by, and he goes, "What the fuck was that?" And Matt Damon talks about how, like, he could not get past this. Here, Matt Damon and I think Rosamund Pike or somebody, Matt Damon is having this whole scene that is all set up, and David Fincher can't get past the fact that this guy who walked by, this background actor, this made no sense. Nobody walks like that. This doesn't, I can't figure it out. So he saw something in the way that the background actor moved that didn't ring true. And Matt Damon posits that it's probably because somebody told the background actor walk from here to here and didn't say, you're going to return a book, walk past the camera. You're going to go help somebody, walk past the camera. You work here, you're going to go help somebody walk. He didn't give him direction. Or the background, he, she, I don't know, didn't give the background actor direction, so the background actor has something to do, and so the walk would seem natural. David Fincher just saw somebody walk by that had zero idea what they were doing or why, and it rang completely false. A lot of times when I watch, this is why I say this, a lot of times when I watch film, something rings false, and I'm like, wait, I can't unsee that. And now all I'm thinking about is that one thing. And this plate full of pancakes where this guy's sitting at this restaurant totally rings false. As the director, if I were directing, would I catch that? I don't know. But as an audience watching it, it rings false. Every time I watch the film, I see his plate full of pancakes. And I have to forcefully tell myself, okay, just let it go and pay attention to the scene. He should have been eating the pancakes. If I were I would hope that if I were the director, I'd be like, eat the fucking pancakes, or get rid of those pancakes. Like have one on there. Like he finished his meal and it doesn't matter anymore. But a plate full of pancakes, eat them. Okay. Anyway, so those are the little things that I wish that I could do a film. Or I could do a review where I'm watching the film, and when those things come up, I could actually talk about that. The other thing is, Fruit Brute. So at one scene, Tim Roth is rehearsing. I'm going to throw those notes away. At one scene, Tim Roth is rehearsing his commode story, which I'll talk about later. And there is a box of Fruit Brute in the background. Now, I'm not 100% sure. I'm going to look it up right now. Fruit Brute. I'm almost positive it's the same cereal that was used in Pulp Fiction, right? Fruit Brute, Pulp. It is, isn't it? It is, isn't it? It is. Okay, so tonight when I was watching it, okay, this is why I watch movies over and over and over, because I don't always catch everything. And tonight when I was watching it, even though I've seen Reservoir Dogs dozens of times, I did not catch the fact that in the background, Tim Roth is doing this commode story. He's rehearsing it at his apartment. In the background, there's a box of Fruit Brute, and it's a cereal, and in Pulp Fiction, Eric Stoltz's character sitting there eating, and Vincent's character is calling him on the phone, and he's sitting there, and the phone is ringing and ringing, and he's eating, and right next to him is a box of Fruit Brute. I didn't realize that until tonight. Okay, so all of you who already knew that are probably laughing at me right now, like, how many times did it take for you to realize that it was also Fruit Brute? Okay, so anyway, let's move on. The reason why I wanted to move on from the book is there's a couple of things that it started to get me to talk about, but there were other things I wanted to talk about that I wrote notes on. So in the beginning of Reservoir Dogs, the opening scene where they're all in the restaurant and they're talking, they're having a conversation. One of the brilliant things I think about Tarantino, about his writing, is that not only can he write something that is totally has nothing to do with anything. I mean, it's brilliant. It has nothing to do with anything, but it's the kind of conversation that people would have in real life, and it's brilliant. He writes so well, and this beginning monologue really has nothing to do with the rest of the film. It has nothing to do with the rest of the film, but it's so brilliant. He himself is sitting there talking about Madonna, a Madonna song, and then it rolls into music. Chris Penn's character starts talking about another song, and then tips. Who gives tips, who doesn't, and none of this has anything to do with the rest of the film, but it's brilliant. It's very well written. And one of the things I want to bring up is a directing style. In that beginning scene, a lot of times Tarantino has most of the screen obscured by somebody's back. It's all black. He's filming somebody's back, and all you can see is like part of somebody's face. And why did he do this? Did he do this on purpose? I'm sure he did it on purpose. I feel like he did it because he wants you to pay attention. He really wants you to pay attention to two things. And two things primarily, in my opinion, I think. One, who is in this scene? You've got all these guys that the rest of the film, we're going to spend the rest of this film on these guys. We need to know who these guys are. Even though he doesn't say their names, he wants you to see them and kind of get a little idea of who they are, because they all say something in that opening scene, and what they say gives away, part of their character. And that's the other thing. I feel like he's forcing you to pay attention to the dialogue, to what's being said. Even though it's obscure and ridiculous, it has nothing to do with anything in the rest of the film, it's important for you to pay attention to what's being said and who's saying it. And he does such a great job of, like, the camera almost constantly moves. It moves a lot. It pans. It goes here. It goes there. But almost all the time, it's mostly obscured by somebody's back, or the back of somebody's head, the back, somebody's shoulder, and you can't see anybody's face. So you're forced to pay attention to who's on the screen and what's being said. And I love that. You don't see that very often from a big time, definitely not a big time director. You won't see that in John Wick, or you won't see that in the Transformer movies, things like that. But he intentionally is like obscuring your view to make you pay attention to who's on the screen, who he lets you see on the screen, more importantly, who he lets you see on the screen, and what's being said. I love that. And one thing that popped out in my mind was 12% tip. Chris Penn's characters, I'd go above 12% for that. What year is this, the 12% tip? That's just, it's 2023. This movie came out in 92. It came out in 92. Didn't I just say that a little while ago? Yes, it came out in 92. 12% tip just sounds, wow. Okay, 92, I was 10, 11 years old, so I wasn't going to restaurants, I wasn't paying for things, I wasn't tipping, so I didn't know, but I never remembered a 12% tip. Wow, okay, I just dated myself. What else did I want to say about this? Oh, right after that, right after that scene, you get the audio of the K-Billy Super Sounds, the radio station. There's a reason I love this. I think he interjects this a couple of times in the film, K-Billy Super Sounds. And the fact that this guy, this voiceover actor, I don't know who he is. Maybe I should look it up. Kate Billy. I'm on the page right now. Oh, it doesn't show on the main page. Anyway, this guy is so bored and disinterested, and it's so funny that later on, Mr. Blonde's character's like, "Oh, I love this station." What? This guy, this disc jockey. I mean, how does he land this job? How does he keep this job? It's so funny. It's such a It's such a stark contrast to like the characters in the film who are talking to each other and talking blah 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 blah, and then you get this K-Billy Super Sound of the 60, and you're just like, what is this? Who is this guy? And he hates it, and you could hear it in his voice. He hates his job. I think it's hilarious. What else did I want to say? Take your time. Oh yeah, so one of the things I think is a mark of a good actor on stage, because most of my experience is on stage, and when you're on stage, you have a certain amount of time to get things done. When you're doing film, the editor is going to edit you whatever way he edits you. You can take a long pause, and the editor is going to cut it out because he doesn't like it. The director doesn't like it. Whoever, whatever. They're going to edit any way they want. I've seen scenes in movies, outtakes and scenes, and been like, that's the same exact scene that's in the film, only they cut out like 90% of the pauses, and then whatever they add afterwards. And it's a little bit of a shock that an actor will take a pause, a dramatic pause for a reason that they feel, and a director in a film will cut it out. Well, I wrote down this note that says the mark of a good actor is taking pauses and knowing when to take pauses, and a mark of a good actor is to know when somebody is taking a pause. I've done auditions where I've tried to take a pause, and the actor auditioning with me for theater feels like, is that my line? And they'll continue even though it's not their line. I've had that happen to me multiple times where I'm trying to take a pause because I feel like this scene or this character or this line deserves this pause and needs this reflection for whatever reason, and the other actor in the audition feels like it's empty space. Wait, am I supposed to be talking? And then they'll go on whether it's their line or not. And what made me realize this is this part where Tim Roth is lying on the ground and he's quiet, and Steve Buscemi is talking to Harvey Keitel's character. I guess I should use their characters in the film if you don't know who everybody is. So Mr. Orange is on the ground. He's dying. He is shot in the stomach. Mr. White is talking to Mr. Pink, and he takes this pause. He's talking, and he takes this pause, and then he talks again, and then there's this brilliant part where Pink is talking, and all you see, and Tarantino's done this again in Jackie Brown. I love it in Jackie Brown, where Keitel, Mr. White's character, you just see him thinking, and Pink is talking, and he's literally reflecting, and it's not like he's listening to talk. He's literally listening and reflecting on what's going on and what's being said, and then he continues. The mark of a good actor is being able to pause and not feel like silence means something's wrong. And Harvey Keitel does this a couple of times in this film, and he does a great job. So another thing I want to bring up is, wow, Harvey Keitel in this film, Mr. White, wow, just he's amazing. So one of the questions here in the book is, would you recommend this film? Absolutely yes. Which character were you most able to identify with or connect with in what way? And I wrote down Mr. White, Harvey Keitel, because it took me a long time to realize this, but one day I was literally, I said in my introduction video, I'm almost always watching something. Even when I'm here working my day job, I've got a movie on and I'm listening to it. And I've listened to Reservoir Dogs I countless times. And one of the times I was listening to it, and I noticed while I was working, I noticed that whenever Harvey Keitel's lines came up, I would be miming his words. And I thought to myself, that's the character I feel like I could play easily. Now, are there other characters in this film that I could play? Absolutely. I know that there are other characters I could do, but Harvey Keitel's character, Mr. White, is the character that I want to play of all of the characters in this film. He's the one that I would love to play, and I feel like I have stuff to add? No, not add. I have something to give for that character. And so he's definitely the one I identify the most with, because I would love to play that character. This says, best line or memorable quote. Okay, so when I think of like best line or memorable quote, there's a lot of movies where I think of them and I have a line like right away. That's the line I think of. That's the line that identifies the movie. There's nothing in this film that technically I feel like that's the line that I think of every time I think of the film. Every time I think of the Big Lebowski, I think, do you have any Kahlua? I think I said it's an obscure line, but there's a reason why it's brilliant and it's hilarious. And I think I used that line in my introduction video. Excuse me. This is the fun part of being unedited. So I think I used that line in my introduction video. And the one line that I think of when I think of Reservoir Dogs may not necessarily have anything to do with the film, but when I think of it, and the fact that like I just said, I identify with Mr. White so much, I feel like I could play it. The one line that always pops in my mind when I think of it is that he takes that pause. What the fuck was I supposed to do? When he's talking about, not telling Mr. Pink his name. Trying to explain to Mr. Pink why he told Mr. Orange what his real name was. And that Harvey Keitel does that so well. And that pause he takes, like I was saying, that pause he takes before he drones that home, before he hits that, what the fuck was I supposed to do? He does that so well. And, I would love to be able to, I would love to be able to play that character, but that's the line that always, pops in my mind every time I think of this film. And it's because of how amazing, Harvey Keitel is in this film. What is next on here? Let's not do that yet. Okay, let's wait, because it asked me about the ending. The next question is, were you surprised by the ending? What would you do differently? Let's not talk about the ending yet, because I have plenty more to talk about before we get to the ending. So one thing I wanted to interject in here is I've never been a big fan of Michael Madsen. Sorry, I'm not trying to say he's a bad actor. He's not. He's a good actor. I like him. I don't like him. He's a good actor, but I've never really liked him. And I've seen quite a bit of films that he's been in, and this was not the first film that I saw him in. But when I saw this film and Kill Bill and what is the other one? What is it? Hateful Eight. I started to feel like, okay, I love him in that character, in that full of himself, cocky asshole of a character, and I can't see him doing anything else, absolutely anything else, because the minute I see him, his posture, his face, he just screams. I'm sorry, Michael. He just screams asshole, cocky asshole. And so I can't really see him playing, he He's never going to be the guy, the dad, the cool dad. He's never going to be the Ryan Reynolds character. That it's just never going to happen. He's not going to be anyway. Michael Madsen does a great job in this film. He is fantastic. I'm not saying he's a bad actor. I'm saying every time I see him, I see one character, and I can't tear myself away from that because he is so rich in that persona that I don't see him as anything else. And it's hard for me to see him in anything else. I'm actually going to look him up and see if is there anything else that I saw him in that screams something different. Is this all acting? This is all acting. I have not seen a lot that he's done, honestly. I've seen a good handful. I don't remember him being in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but apparently he was in that. I should watch. I haven't watched it in a while. I need to watch it again and find out where he is. No, I haven't seen a lot of this. Sorry, buddy. I have not seen a lot of your films. Hateful Eight, I think he was great in that, but he played that character, No. I have not seen a lot he's in. And the few that I know that I have seen, I see that one character and I'm like, he's great at that one character, but I can't see him doing anything else. Yeah, that's probably it. But, so I wanted to bring him up because he's beautiful in this character. He's wonderful in this character. And Reservoir Dogs is like everything you want to see that character do. And he does it brilliantly. There's this one scene, and I bring this up for a reason. If I were making film, if I were directing, what would I do? There's this scene where he takes... Mr. Blonde takes Mr. White and Mr. Pink out to his car, and before this, they have this confrontation. Mr. White and Mr. Blonde have this huge confrontation, and they have this blow up, and you already know that Mr. Pink and Mr. White don't agree with Mr. Blonde and how he started shooting everybody and how he reacts and how he acts. So you kind of have this camaraderie between Mr. White and Mr. Pink already, and they don't like Mr. Blonde's attitude and how he works. And so you already have this separation, okay? And it's a really good separation. And so as the audience, I'm already going, they don't like him, they don't agree with him. And he's saying, come, I got something in the car, come check it out. And they go out to go check out what's in the car. And Tarantino's decision as a director is to put the camera in the trunk, open the trunk, and watch their reaction. And we see all of their reaction at the same time is, a pleasing reaction. But as the audience, you don't know right away what's in the trunk. The next line, almost the next line, it may be the second line right after, Mr. Blonde says, I got this fucking cop in the trunk. It's not exactly that verbatim, but he basically says, I got this cop in the trunk. So you know who's in the trunk, like almost immediately. So as a director, I'm thinking to myself, if I were a director, I'm thinking to myself, okay, what's going to give a better impact? What Tarantino did is I'm in the trunk and I see their reactions all at the same time. Or do I want to flip that because we know almost right away who's in the trunk? So the surprise is not really who's in the trunk. I feel like is the surprise how they are going to react. We already know, and we just got out of this scene where Mr. Pink and Mr. White are against Mr. Blonde. He says, come, let's check out the trunk. Would it be more impactful for the audience to have the trunk open and see who's in the trunk? A cop. Because there is literally like a beat or two before we know it's a cop. And he shows us anyway. So would it be more impactful for us to come out, have the trunk open, see who's in there, and wonder, holy shit, how is Mr. White and Mr. Pink gonna react? And we think that because we just got out of this scene that Mr. White and Mr. Pink are going to act negatively because they already don't like Mr. Blonde. Are we going to open the trunk, see this cop, and go, holy shit, what are they going to do now? Whoa, holy shit, what are they going to do now? So that's a director choice. Do I want the audience to think, what's in the trunk? Holy shit, what's in the trunk? And we don't see that? Or do I want them to see what's in the trunk and go, holy shit, how are White and Pink going to act? How are they going to react? And they're outside, and what's going to happen? Okay. I mean, I guess it could go both ways, but I thought about that when I watched it today. I was like, wow, it could have gone either way. And what do I, as a director, if I were a director, what would I choose? What would I want to have happen there? And what could I draw out longer? Both of them are going to be given away pretty quick because you're going to know Mr. White and Mr. Pink's reaction pretty quick. So both of them are going to be given away pretty quick. But that was one of the things I wrote down. So the next big scene. Okay, so here's the thing. Everybody remembers, if you've seen Reservoir Dogs, or, most people, not most people, but a lot of people who have just heard of Reservoir Dogs, the one thing you hear about is the torture scene. I heard, I don't remember if I heard or if I read that Quentin Tarantino fought with the studios to keep that in. They wanted it out. He said, you cannot get rid of this. This is too important. This is the pivotal scene of the whole damn movie. You can't get rid of this. From I don't remember if I read or if I heard it in an interview, but he fought to keep this scene in. It is a very important scene. It really is. The torture scene, Mr. Blonde torturing the cop, that's all tied up. And, most people will either remember it or will know about it, even if they haven't seen the film. This is why I could not watch the film for years. And the first time I watched it, I went, wow, that is a brilliant film, and I never want to watch it again. And I've had people have this reaction with American History X, going back to that. So American History X has this scene where Edward Norton's character, there's these two black guys trying to steal his truck. And he goes out, I mean, everybody knows it, the curb scene. So he goes out to stop them, he shoots one of them, kills them, and then he goes after the other, the bullets run out. He comes back. He literally makes this guy put his mouth on the curb, the street curb, and then stamps on it. And most people, and kills him. Most people, that is so disturbing and so realistic and brutal that they cannot watch that. That they are so distraught by this and so disturbed by this, they cannot watch it. I've had, someone tell me it's a brilliant film and I'll never watch it. Why? Because of that scene. And to tell you the truth, 100% truth, that scene never bothered me. I grew up in a very violent home. Yes, I did. I don't want to get into that. But for one reason or another, that scene never bothered me. I felt like it was a natural progression for someone like this, for a KKK member to hate black people, and to do something this violent and this disgusting to another human being. And so I wasn't as shocked by that character doing that. It made sense that character would do that. It's a absolutely horrible thing, but I went yeah, that character would do that. This torture scene, when I first saw it, caught me by surprise because I had not heard of it. I had not heard that there was a torture scene in Reservoir Dogs. I didn't know much about Reservoir Dogs when I finally watched it. And so when I watched it, I was shocked. I was like, one, why haven't I heard of this? And two, even though you don't see anything, he cuts away. He quite deliberately, Tarantino moves the camera in the corner. And I don't know if this is true or not. And I don't remember if I read or I heard it in an interview. But I read or heard that he did that in rebellion into the studios that were telling him to cut this out. He did that on purpose, didn't show anything. I don't know how true that is, but he quite deliberately takes the camera and goes whoop into the corner while Mr. Blonde is literally cutting off the policeman's ear, and then you see him hold the ear up. And I was just like, I was so shocked. I literally could not watch this movie for years. I always thought to myself it was a brilliant film and I could never watch it again. That scene was just too disturbing for me. And I felt the same way that a lot of people feel about American History X, the curb scene. That's how I felt. And so I understand when people talk about that curb scene, because I had the same reaction to this torture scene. It took me years. Like I said, so the first time I watched it, it was most definitely after Sin City, but before Grindhouse. It took many years for me to watch it again, and I think that Tarantino had already come out with Inglourious Basterds, because that was also very violent. The torture scene with the bat killing the German soldier, the one that they actually show. Excuse me. I think that one got me to slightly desensitized to this torture scene. And so I went, okay, I can go back and watch that. Now I get there's a lot more deliberate comedy in Inglourious Basterds. There's a lot more deliberate comedic words, lines, situations in that film that I was like, okay, it's very violent, but it's deliberately, comedic. And so I think that got me to go back and watch Reservoir Dogs, because I knew that there was a torture scene in that I couldn't get over. And that's when I was able to go back and watch it and sort of get it, and then watch it again and then kind of get it. It took about 4 or 5 times me watching this film to go get past the shock of that scene, the torture scene in Reservoir Dogs, and finally watch it for the brilliant film that it is and watch all the artistic things that happen in there. It really did take a long time. And it's not just the torture scene that gets me. It's Mr. Blonde's nonchalantness to torturing this cop. And it's not only that. So it's not just the character who's doing this that's disturbing, because the character he's fucked up. But it's what he's doing that you don't see. It's what he's doing. And then literally right after he cuts the guy's ear off, he tells him, hold on, wait a second, even though he's tied up, and walks out of the garage or whatever it is, the warehouse, wherever they're at. He walks out, and this is brilliant on Tarantino's part. He walks out, and the music goes away. They're playing the song. The music kind of goes away, fades away, and you hear these kids playing ball across the street. It's daylight. It's during the day. He's walking out to his car nonchalantly, gets in the car, pulls something out. It's just like an everyday. If I were across the street watching the kids play or playing with the kids, seeing this guy walk, I would never even think of it. And just the thought of this guy is torturing this guy in this building. If I would have seen him on the street, I never would have known he was doing this. Disturbed me. I was like, and Tarantino did such a great job of like, he walks out, he grabs the gas, he goes back in, and then the music's still playing, and we're right back into the torture scene. But that whole detour was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is so everyday, no problem. That's what bothered me. That's what really shocked me, and it took me a long time to get over that and get past it. It's brilliant. It's brilliantly done. But it took me a long time to like get over that and be able to watch it for, the artistic, masterpiece that it really is. It's wow. So what did I want to say after that? Chris Penn. Chris Penn is another actor. He's not like Michael Madsen. Chris Penn is like, I don't think I've ever seen him anything that I went, wow, he did a fantastic job, except for this. I've seen him do a few things, and I'm like, okay, he's cool. I like him. I like him in that. I can give or take. But in this film, I think he's irreplaceable. He's fantastic. I've never seen him better. And that's saying a lot. He does such a great job in this. And I feel like a lot of times he's so natural that I don't feel like he's acting. And you know, I hate to say anything bad, but there are times when Steve Buscemi, I'm like, you're acting, and you're making choices, and I get that, and it's fine. You're a good actor. I've seen you do other stuff that I think is fantastic. But in this, you know, I feel like you're acting. And in this, I don't feel like Sean Penn is acting. I think he's so natural and brilliant in this. It's fantastic. I think that's the mark of another mark of a great actor. Not only pauses, but I need to believe that you're who you are. You're who you're playing. And whenever I go on stage or whenever I act, I have to believe that I am who I am portraying. Because if I don't, the audience won't. And if I don't, what is that line in Reservoir Dogs? A good actor, you got to be a good actor. You got to be like Marlon Brando, and a bad actor is easily spotted, or something like that. I can't remember how Randy Brooks says it, but it's true. If there are plenty of movies where I'm watching somebody and I'm going, you're a great actor. I've seen you do great things, but in this, you're trying. I don't believe you believe you're who you are. And in this, you know, there are times where Steve Buscemi, I'm like, I believe you're acting. You're doing a good job, but you're acting. And Sean Penn, for the most part, or excuse me, Chris Penn, in this film, for the most part, I don't think I ever thought that. I always thought he was who he believed he was, and he did a great job. Great job. What else did I want to say? Oh, Tim Roth. So, Tim Roth is another one. He's so great in this movie, and he plays so many different characters in so many different dimensions. If you really just sit and think about it, if you analyze the fact that he has to play so many different characters, when you're watching a film and you realize he's got to play, he's got to play a dying jewel thief. He's got to play an undercover dying cop. He's got to play a rookie cop. He's got to play a drug dealer. He's got to play an undercover cop. He's got to play all these dimensions of them. You know, all these different levels of these characters. And in a film, it's easy to go, okay, well, that's no problem. One day he does this, and one day they shoot this, and he does this, and so it's no big deal. But if you were to put this on stage, whoever plays Tim Roth's character, Mr. Orange, whoever plays that has got to be on the top of his fucking game. No joke. You have so many different levels and so many different dimensions. You have to make not only the audience believe you are who you are, but you have to make the person you're acting with believe you are who you are. Because if you fuck up one part of that, none of it becomes believable anymore. I want to believe that you're every one of these characters at every moment. And that character, Mr. Orange, goes through so many different levels of character like any other person in this film. It's an amazing. Could I do that? I would love to do that, but I don't identify with that character nearly as much as I do Mr. White. But being able to play all those characters and every one of those dimensions every night on stage instead of in film, that would be a hell of a thing. I think Tim Roth does it fantastic. I think that film gives you the ability to do some really great stuff, like when he's in the bathroom with the sheriffs, and he's talking like he's talking with Joe and Mr. White and blah blah blah, and Nice Guy Eddie. being able to talk like he is with them, but in front of the cops. It's so great to see that on film. And Tarantino did such a wonderful job in that whole commode story part where it goes from, did you use the commode story in the restaurant? He asked, did you use the commode story? And then they go to like, what is the commode story? And then introducing him to the commode story. And when he uses it, and then using it in front of the guys, but in front of the cops, and then being in the story in front of the cop, all those little things. It was just such a brilliant part of the film. And you can't do that. I mean, could you do that on stage? It would take a lot of logistics, a lot of lighting, a lot of, movement, maybe some quick wardrobe, blah, 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 but not nearly as wonderful and effective as he did in film. I love that part. It's fantastic. And one of the parts, yeah. So one of the parts that at the end of the commode story, one of the parts that cracks me up every single time, I think it's brilliant. I think that whole, like I'm talking about, the whole part is so well done. He ends it on the perfect note, almost ends it on the perfect note with Tim Roth turning on the fucking air dryer for his hands. I crack up every time because it's brilliant. These cops are talking about like shooting somebody or almost shooting somebody, and he's like, I'm already in this situation. The dog is barking at me. I have this weed in this bag. He knows I got the weed. The cops are right there. I could get busted any second. I've just gone to the bathroom, just washed my hands. What else am I going to do? There's no paper towels. There's only an air dryer. What am I going to do? The cops are still talking. Fuck it. And he just puts on the air dryer. I love it. I love that the choice was to use an air dryer and not like just... He made a point of drying his hands instead of like, okay, he washes his hands and then he dries his hands and then he goes and he leaves. No, Quentin Tarantino was like, how do we make this better? He turns on the air dryer and interrupts the cops while he dries his hands. Love it. I mean, that's one of the best parts of the whole film, in my opinion. I love that part. I love it. I wrote a note here. That I'm not going to talk about. I'm probably going to get, if I talked about this, I'd probably get ostracized. So the N word. There's a lot of words I don't like. Do I like giving power to words that? Shouldn't be there? When I was young and my mom would say, this is a bad word, 4-letter word, these are bad words. Why are they bad words? Why are they bad words? It's just because we say they're bad words. They're not necessarily bad words. Why is ass a bad word? Why is fuck a bad word? It's just because we say that it's a bad word and we teach people that. Well, there are certain words that I still have stigma, the N word, the GD word. There are still words that I have stigma to, but there is usage in this film that I want to talk about, and I feel like if I brought the topic up and started talking about it, it would be a huge blow up. And I don't, for my first film, for my first review, I don't need something to blow up in my face. But there is, one of these days I might, maybe somebody would be interested in finding out what I have to say about this in regards to the N-word and Steve Buscemi in this film. Maybe one of these days I'll talk about it. That's the other thing. So when I was thinking, when it said, what's a memorable quote, a memorable line, and I put that, what the fuck was I supposed to do? So that's one thing that always pops in my head. But then the other thing that always pops in my head, which is almost like another one of my favorite quotes, when Mr. White is in the car talking to Mr. Orange about the job. They're sitting there going over the details of the job. Who does what? Who does when? What happens this? What happens then? What happens then? They're sitting there talking about the job, and so when they're done talking about the job, Mr. White says, "I'm hungry. Let's go get a taco." And that, just like the pancakes, totally rings false to me. Who the fuck gets one taco? Who, when they're hungry, let's go get a taco. What? What? Like, what the fuck? Who gets one taco? Let's go. I'm hungry. Let's go get a taco. Let's go get some tacos. Let's go get some Mexican food. Let's go get something to eat. Who gets... Why did he write, let's get a taco? That's it. I'm hungry. Let's get a taco. What? I'm assuming because so many actors have said how Tarantino writes so well. He is so great with writing. You don't even have to think. You don't have to ad-lib. There's nothing to ad-lib. He's already put it there. He's already worked out every scenario. He's already put it down. I think that was Samuel L. Jackson that said, he's already worked out every scenario. You don't have to worry about it. It's right there on the page. And it's perfect. It's brilliant. Did he write, I'm hungry, let's get a taco? And why one taco? He doesn't necessarily say, let's get one taco, but he says, let's get a taco. And I don't get that. And it's a huge deal for me. And I don't, every time I watch the movie, I'm like, I'm hungry, let's get a taco? What? Okay, I'm probably making a much bigger deal out of the taco line than needs be. Or maybe some of you have experienced the same thing, been like, why did you say let's get a taco? If you do, let me know, because I want to know, am I the only weird person that's like, let's get a taco makes no sense? But maybe I am. I don't know. Oh, that's the other thing. So I wrote this little note. So Mr. White says earlier in the film that Mr. Orange, before my favorite line, what was I supposed to do? Before my favorite line, he talks about how Mr. Orange just got shot. It was my fault they got shot. Okay, well, later on in the film you find out when Mr. Orange got shot, they stopped a car, guns out, stopped a car, a woman's in there. They both go around to get into the car. The woman happens to pull a gun out and shoots Mr. Orange in the stomach. I can't figure out how is that Mr. White's fault. Did Tarantino work that out? Did he not work it out? I don't see, as the audience, how is that Mr. White's fault? Is Mr. White just being overly critical or guilty? That's possible. I don't know, but it's not obvious to me that is Mr. White's fault that Mr. Orange got shot. I can't figure that one out. If someone's figured that out, let me know, because that does come up for me every time he says that line. It's my fault he got shot. And then I always think, well, yeah, he got shot by that woman, but that makes no sense. She grabbed a gun, she turned, and she shot whoever was there. It wasn't like... I can't figure out why that was Mr. White's fault. But please let me know if you found out why that was Mr. White's fault. So the next few questions are... Oh, I wanted to wait on this. Were you surprised by the ending? What would you do differently? Okay, so so this is... It depends on what you consider the ending. What do you consider the ending? When I read this, I was like, no, I wasn't surprised by the ending. It was a natural progression. And what I'm thinking of is when Mr. Orange tells him, Mr. White, I'm a cop. And Mr. White it's so wonderful. It's so... The tears coming off of Keitel's... The struggle of him, like, putting the gun to his head and just like, am I going to shoot him? Am I not going to shoot him? And it's just such a... Again, Harvey Keitel is amazing. Did I think that Orange telling White, I'm a cop, and White shooting him and getting shot by the police, did I think that ending was a surprise? No. I thought it was natural. And I thought it was done brilliantly and had so much emotion and passion. When I first saw it, I was like, oh my God, it was satisfying to a degree. Did I like it? I didn't necessarily like it, but it was satisfying because that was the progression of the story. That's the only way it could have ended, and it was done brilliantly. And that's how I feel. But I had answered this question before I watched the movie all the way through, and when I got to the end, I was shocked again, as I always am, by that 4-way shooting. Right before that, Joe is pointing at Orange, White is pointing at Joe, Nice Guy is pointing at White. That four-way shooting, absolutely I was shocked by that. Is that the ending? If you consider that the ending, then yes. Absolutely I was shocked by that. I didn't know how that was going to go. When I first watched it, I was blown away by that. I literally had to pause it and just and then rewind it. I watched it again and was like, whoa, okay. And then the natural progression is, Orange tells White he's a cop, and then that was not a shock. So I guess it depends on what you consider the end. Did I find that a shock? What is your overall opinion of the director's first film? Like I said before, it's not as obviously comedic as a lot of his other films are, but the brilliance is evident. His brilliance is definitely clear in this film. It's so amazing. He does such a great job with everything: the writing, the directing, the style, and the choice not to have a soundtrack, which really makes a difference. Honestly, it really does make a difference. Can you see hints of their later style in this film? Absolutely. I've already talked about a lot of that. Is there anything else you want to mention about this movie? I've said it here. I've said it here already. I would love to do a stage play of this. It would be fantastic. I would love to play Mr. White. That would be great. At the end of this challenge, number 42, it says, quote, "My first brutal experience of filmmaking, called a baptism by fire." That quote was by Oliver Stone in 2014, referring to Seizure, his film he made in 1974. I've seen plenty of Oliver Stone films. I have not seen Seizure. One of my favorite films of all time, JFK, is Oliver Stone. So anyway, a lot to say about Reservoir Dogs. Unfortunately, this has been a little over an hour. I didn't expect it to be a little over an hour. I guess there are some films I have more to say about than others. But film number one on the 52-week challenge and on the board. So I will post this video, and hopefully you'll get. You should be getting one a week. If not, I'm going to be behind in my 52-week challenge. I'll have to make up somewhere. So I hope you've enjoyed listening to me babble on about movies, and we'll see you next time. Who knows what that's going to be, because I haven't figured it out, what the next film's going to be. Thanks a lot. See you next time.